The morning light filtered through the crystal dome of the Galactic Council chambers as Ambassador Dong-Su adjusted his simple black suit. Around him, 11 other species settled into their ornate seats, each more elaborate than the last. The Zephyrians floated in their energy pods. The crystalline beings hummed with internal light, and the massive hegemony representatives took up nearly half their section. Dong-Su sat in the smallest chair at the table. Earth's seat had always been the smallest. Today we discuss the energy crisis affecting the Outer Rim colonies, announced Chairman Threxdun, his voice booming through translation devices. 17 worlds are running out of power. We need solutions. The usual debate began. The Zephyrians suggested rationing. The crystal beings proposed mining operations that would take 50 years to complete. The hegemony wanted to relocate entire populations to other worlds. Dong-Su cleared his throat. If I may, Chairman, several representatives looked annoyed. They never liked it when humans spoke too early in discussions. Dr. Heejin has developed a solution, Dong-Su continued, activating his holographic display. A spinning model of what looked like a small cube appeared in the center of the table. This fusion matrix can provide unlimited clean energy using common elements found on any planet. The room fell silent. The cube rotated slowly, its design elegant and simple. How much energy? Asked the HFY-Prime. Enough to power a world the size of Earth for 1,000 years, Dong-Su replied. From a device smaller than this table. Murmurs filled the chamber. The crystal beings hummed more rapidly, their version of excitement. The technology is ready for immediate production, Dong-Su added. Dr. Heejin's team has built 3 working prototypes. We can begin manufacturing within 6 months. Chairman Threxdun studied the hologram with his 4 eyes. This seems too simple. Where is the complexity? Where are the massive installations we usually require? Sometimes the best solutions are simple ones, Dong-Su said quietly. We will need to study this thoroughly, declared the Zephyrian representative. Such claims require extensive verification. Of course, said the HFY-Prime. We cannot rush into implementing untested technology. But the prototypes have been tested for 2 years. Dong-Su protested. The data is all here. 2 years is not enough, said Chairman Threxdun firmly. We will form a committee to review this proposal. It will take approximately 18 months to reach a conclusion. Dong-Su felt his shoulders sag slightly. 18 months. 17 worlds were dying now, but the Council wanted to spend 18 months talking about the solution. In the meantime, continued the chairman, we will implement emergency rationing across all affected systems. The meeting moved on to other topics. The crystalline beings presented a new trade agreement that took 3 hours to discuss. The Zephyrians wanted to expand their territory, which led to heated debates about boundaries and rights. When the session finally ended, Dong-Su walked slowly back to the human embassy. His footsteps echoed in the empty corridors. The other species traveled in groups, talking loudly about their plans and victories. Humans always walked alone. At the embassy, Dong-Su found a message waiting on his private communication device. The seal belonged to President Nari herself. His hands trembled slightly as he opened it. Operation Silent Departure authorized. Begin immediate implementation. Tell no one. Dong-Su stared at the message for a long time. He had known this day might come. Earth's leadership had been growing frustrated with the Council for years. Every human innovation was dismissed or delayed. Every proposal was buried in committees. Every breakthrough was treated as interesting but not important. He thought about Dr. Hyjin, who had spent 5 years developing the fusion matrix. She had worked 18-hour days, solving problems that had stumped entire civilizations. Her solution could save billions of lives and revolutionize galactic society. The Council wanted to spend 18 months talking about it. Dong-Su activated his secure communication array and sent a coded message to every human facility in Council: space, research stations, diplomatic posts, trade centers, medical facilities, engineering outposts. The message was short and simple. The garden is closing. Return home. Within hours, the Great Migration began, but it was so quiet that nobody noticed. Dr. Myung-ho finished his work at the Altarian Medical Center and submitted his final report on the quantum plague treatments. He packed his few personal belongings and boarded a transport ship heading toward Earth space. His alien colleagues thought he was taking a vacation. Captain Jin Woo completed his routine maintenance on Hyperspace Relay Station 7 and uploaded his final calibration reports. He left detailed instructions for the station's operation, knowing that nobody else really understood how the delicate systems worked. He boarded his ship just as his shift ended. Engineer Bo-Ram shut down her atmospheric processing station on Kepler Prime and activated the automated systems. She had designed those systems herself, but she had never shared the complete technical specifications with anyone. She told her supervisor she was visiting family on Earth. One by one, humans across the galaxy completed their work, filed their reports, and quietly left their posts. They took only personal belongings and left behind detailed but incomplete instructions for their replacements. The exodus was so gradual and professional that it looked like normal personnel rotations. Humans had always been reliable about completing their duties before taking leave. Nobody questioned why so many were traveling to Earth at the same time. Ambassador Dong-Su was among the last to leave. He spent 3 days ensuring that all human diplomatic affairs were properly documented. He met with his assistant, a young Zephyrian named Veltar, who had always shown respect for human capabilities. "I will be away for some time," Dong-Su told him. "Please handle any urgent matters according to standard protocols." Veltar seemed confused. "How long will you be gone? Should I schedule your return for the Energy Matrix Committee meetings?" Dong-Su looked out the window at the stars beyond the Council station. Somewhere out there, human ships were already jumping to hyperspace, carrying Earth's children home. "I do not think those meetings will be necessary," he said quietly. That night, Ambassador Dong-Su's ship departed Council space. The running lights faded to pinpricks and then vanished entirely as the vessel jumped to hyperspace. In his quarters, Dong-Su opened a bottle of Earth wine and poured a single glass. He raised it toward the viewing port, toward the galaxy his species was leaving behind. "You never knew what you had," he whispered to the stars. "Perhaps now you will learn." The ship carried him into the darkness between worlds, following the path that thousands of other humans had already taken. Behind them, they left a galaxy that had grown too comfortable with taking miracles for granted. In the council chambers, Dong-Su's empty chair sat in shadow. Nobody had noticed it was vacant yet. But soon, they would notice other things. Systems would start failing. Problems would go unsolved. Questions would be asked. But by then, humanity would be gone without a word, and the galaxy would be left to discover what they had lost. 3 months had passed since the human embassy went dark. Veltar walked through the empty corridors where Ambassador Dong-Su used to work. The silence felt wrong. Everything felt wrong lately. The first sign of trouble came from the Altarian colonies. Dr. Myung-ho had been treating their quantum plague for 15 years. The disease was strange and deadly, attacking people at the genetic level. Without the doctor's special treatments, it spread like fire through dry grass. "Where is the human doctor?" demanded the Altarian representative during the emergency council session. "Our people are dying. The plague has returned worse than ever." Chairman Threx-Dunn shifted uncomfortably in his massive chair. "Dr. Myung-ho is on extended leave. We have other doctors." "Other doctors do not understand this disease," the Altarian replied, his voice filled with panic. "They try to use normal medicine. It does not work. The plague changes too fast. Only the human knew how to change the treatment as the disease changed." Veltar listened from his seat at the back of the chamber. As Dongsu's former assistant, he had been promoted to temporary human affairs coordinator. But there were no human affairs to coordinate. Every human post in council space was empty. The second crisis came from the trade routes. Captain Jin Woo had maintained the hyperspace relay network for 20 years. The relays were incredibly complex machines that bent space and time to allow faster travel between star systems. They required constant adjustments and careful monitoring. "Relay Station 7 has gone offline," reported the HFY-Prime. "All ships traveling through Sector 9 are trapped in normal space. The journey that took 3 days now takes 3 months. Send a repair team," ordered Chairman Threx-Dunn. "We did," replied the HFY-Prime grimly. "Our best engineers cannot understand the systems. The human captain left instructions, but they are incomplete. The machines use technology we do not fully understand." More reports flooded in over the following weeks. Relay Station 12 failed, then Station 4. Then the entire network in Sector 15 collapsed. Ships crawled through space at normal speeds, while their crews ran out of food and supplies. Veltar found himself spending sleepless nights reading through Dongsu's old files. The human ambassador had been involved in dozens of projects across the galaxy. Medical research, engineering solutions, diplomatic negotiations. Every file showed the same pattern. Humans would propose a solution. The council would delay or ignore it. The humans would implement it anyway, quietly saving lives and solving problems. The third crisis struck the agricultural worlds. Engineer Bo-Ram had designed atmospheric processors for 12 different planets. These massive machines controlled the air and weather, making hostile worlds suitable for farming. Without proper maintenance, the processors began to malfunction. "The oxygen levels on Kepler Prime are dropping," reported the agricultural minister. "The atmospheric processor is failing. If we cannot repair it, the entire colony will have to be evacuated." "What about the engineer who designed it?" asked Chairman Threx-Dunn. "She left 3 months ago. Our technicians are trying to understand her systems, but the technology is beyond our current knowledge. She used principles that combine biology and physics in ways we have never seen." Veltar pulled up Bo-Ram's technical reports. They were written in clear, simple language that anyone could understand. But when the council's engineers tried to follow the instructions, nothing worked. The humans had a way of thinking about problems that other species could not replicate. As the 4th month began, panic spread through the council chambers. 23 different crises were developing across the galaxy. Medical treatments were failing. Technology was breaking down. Trade routes were collapsing. Agricultural worlds were becoming uninhabitable. "Where are the humans?" Chairman Threx-Dunn demanded during another emergency session. "This cannot be a coincidence. They are all gone." Veltar stood up slowly. All eyes turned to him. I have been investigating this matter. 3 months ago, every human in Council space received travel orders. They all returned to Earth space within 2 weeks. Travel orders from whom? Asked the crystalline representative, her voice humming with confusion. From their own government, Veltar replied. They were recalled home. The chamber erupted in angry voices. Representatives shouted over each other, demanding explanations and assigning blame. Why were we not informed? Demanded the HFY. Because it was not a council matter, Veltar said quietly. Earth recalled its own citizens. They were not required to ask permission. But they abandoned their posts, protested the Zephyrian delegate. They left critical systems without proper maintenance. Veltar pulled up a holographic display. They left detailed instructions for every system they maintained. The problem is that we cannot understand or implement those instructions. The truth was becoming clear to everyone in the chamber. For 300 years, humans had integrated themselves into galactic society so completely that their departure created massive gaps in knowledge and capability. Send a message to Earth, ordered Chairman Threx Dunn. Demand an explanation. I have sent 17 messages, Veltar replied. Earth's government responds that their citizens completed their contractual obligations before departing. They owe no further explanation. Over the following days, the situation grew worse. The quantum plague spread to 6 more systems. 15 hyperspace relays failed completely. 7 agricultural worlds began evacuating their populations. Veltar spent his time reviewing decades of council records. What he found made his heart heavy with shame. In meeting after meeting, humans had proposed solutions to problems. The Council had dismissed these proposals as too simple, too radical, or not worth immediate attention. Dr. Hai Jin's fusion matrix sat in committee review while energy shortages crippled the outer rim. Dr. Sunmi's cancer treatments were deemed interesting but requiring further study, while millions died from diseases she could cure. Admiral Tae Sung's defense strategies were ignored because they seemed too aggressive. The humans had not waited for council approval. They had quietly implemented their solutions anyway, saving lives and maintaining galactic civilization without fanfare or recognition. We took them for granted, Veltar admitted to himself as he walked through the empty human embassy. We treated them like junior partners when they were holding everything together. Deep space monitoring stations began detecting strange readings beyond the galactic rim. Massive energy signatures appeared and disappeared in the darkness between galaxies. Something was being built out there in the void. When Veltar reported these findings to the Council, Chairman Threxdon dismissed them as equipment malfunctions. Our immediate concern is the collapsing infrastructure, the chairman declared. We must find alternatives to human knowledge and skills. But Veltar suspected the truth was more frightening. The humans had not simply left. They had gone somewhere specific. And whatever they were doing in the darkness between galaxies, it was on a scale that defied imagination. As the 6th month of humanity's absence began, Veltar stood alone in the council chambers and wondered if they would ever see the humans again. And if they did, would the humans still consider the galaxy worth saving? 6 months after the humans disappeared, the galaxy was falling apart. Veltar stood in the emergency command center, watching dozens of red warning lights flash across the main display. Each light represented a dying world. The medical crisis had spread beyond all control. Dr. Sunmi's cancer treatments were proving impossible to recreate. Her research notes filled entire databases, but they were written in a strange mix of human intuition and alien science that no one could understand. She talks about feeling the cancer's behavior, complained Dr. Zexhai, the council's best medical researcher. How do you feel a disease? She describes treatments that should not work according to our science, but her patient records show they always worked. Veltar looked at the medical reports scattered across the table. Dr. Sun Mi had cured 17 different types of cancer that other doctors considered hopeless. Her methods seemed to combine precise scientific knowledge with something that could only be called instinct. Hospital ship Mercy 7 is requesting immediate evacuation, reported a communications officer. They have lost 60% of their patients to diseases that Dr. Sun Mi used to treat routinely. The engineering failures were even worse. Bo-Ram's atmospheric processors were shutting down across 12 worlds. Without these machines, the planets would become uninhabitable within months. We have studied her designs for 6 months, said Chief Engineer Koldons. The technology makes no sense. She combines biological processes with mechanical systems in ways that violate basic engineering principles. Yet her machines work perfectly when they function. Can you repair them? Veltar asked desperately. We can replace broken parts, but we cannot understand how the systems operate as a whole. It is like trying to repair a living creature using only knowledge of machines. The evacuation of Kepler-Prime had begun. 3 million colonists were loading onto transport ships, abandoning farms and homes they had built over generations. Similar evacuations were starting on 7 other worlds. But the worst crisis was military. The Void Hunters had emerged from the dark spaces between star systems. They were ancient enemies that the galaxy had faced before, but never in such numbers, or with such advanced technology. They have destroyed the entire 7th Fleet, reported Admiral Krendus, his voice shaking with fear. 12 dreadnoughts and 40 escort ships, gone in 20 minutes. Veltar studied the battle recordings. The Void Hunters moved with perfect coordination, striking at exactly the right moments to cause maximum damage. Their weapons seemed to predict where council ships would be before they moved. How did they know our battle plans? Asked Chairman Threxton. They did not need to know our plans, Admiral Krendus replied grimly. Our tactics have not changed in 50 years. We have become predictable. Veltar pulled up older battle records from his files. For decades, Admiral Tae-sung had submitted detailed reports about Void Hunter activities. The human admiral had tracked their movements, studied their tactics, and developed countermeasures that kept them contained in the outer darkness. Admiral Tae-sung knew they were coming, Veltar announced to the Emergency Council. His reports from 2 years ago predicted exactly this type of large-scale attack. Where are those reports? Demanded Chairman Threxton. Filed under pending review by the military committee, Veltar replied sadly. They have been waiting for approval for 18 months. The room fell silent. Another human solution, ignored by the council's bureaucracy. The Void Hunters struck 3 more systems that week. The council's fleets fought bravely but uselessly. Their ancient tactics were no match for an enemy that had evolved and adapted over the decades. We need new strategies, Admiral Krendus pleaded during another emergency session. Everything we know about warfare is failing. Prime Minister So Young of the Hegemony stood up slowly. She was one of the few council members who had always respected human capabilities. I have reviewed our economic projections, she announced. Without immediate solutions to these crises, galactic civilization will collapse completely within 2 years. Her holographic display showed devastating statistics, medical systems failing across 40 worlds, agricultural production dropping by 60%, trade routes reduced to ancient, slow paths between stars, military forces losing every engagement. With hostile forces, we must contact Earth directly, Prime Minister So-young continued. We need humanity back. Earth has not responded to any diplomatic messages, Chairman Threx Dunn replied angrily. They ignore our communications. Perhaps because we are sending the wrong messages, Veltar suggested quietly. We keep demanding explanations and ordering them to return. We have not tried asking for help. The deep space monitoring stations reported more strange readings from beyond the galactic rim. The energy signatures were growing stronger and more complex. Whatever the humans were building in the darkness, it was enormous. Those readings cannot be accurate, insisted the chief scientist. The energy levels would require the power output of entire star systems. Veltar had been studying the readings for months. The patterns were unlike anything in Council databases, but they showed clear signs of intelligent design. Someone was building something incredible in the void between galaxies. What if they are accurate? He asked. What if the humans have developed technology beyond our understanding? The question hung in the air like a challenge. For 300 years, the Council had assumed that human technology was interesting but limited. What if they had been wrong? The crystalline representative hummed softly, her version of deep thought. The humans always seemed to understand things differently than other species. They would solve problems that we thought were impossible. They thought in ways that other species could not replicate, agreed the Zephyrian delegate. Their solutions seemed too simple, but they always worked. More bad news arrived daily. The quantum plague had mutated beyond all previous forms. Hyperspace relay stations were failing faster than they could be repaired. The Void Hunters had captured 2 entire star systems and were expanding their territory rapidly. We are losing this war, Admiral Krendus admitted during a private meeting with Veltar. Our forces are brave, but we have no idea how to fight this enemy. Admiral Tae-sung's reports describe tactics that could work, but we cannot understand his strategies. Veltar spent that night reading through Tae-sung's military files. The human admiral had not just tracked the Void Hunters. He had been preparing for exactly this type of invasion. His defensive plans covered scenarios that the Council had never considered. He knew they would attack in large numbers, Veltar realized. He knew they would use advanced coordination. He developed countermeasures for tactics they had not even used yet. But Admiral Tae-sung was gone, along with every other human who might understand his strategies. As the 7th month of humanity's absence began, Veltar stood in the empty council chambers and faced a terrible truth. The galaxy was dying without human knowledge and skills. And somewhere in the darkness beyond the stars, humanity was building something that might be their salvation or their replacement. The Council had taken humanity for granted for 3 centuries. Now they were learning the price of that arrogance, and it might be too high to pay. 1 year after humanity vanished, Captain Hwan-il stood on the bridge of his exploration ship and stared into the darkness between galaxies. The Council had given him the fastest ships they could build and a simple mission: find the humans. The energy readings are getting stronger, reported his science officer. Whatever is out there, it is massive beyond anything we have ever seen. Hwan-il was not human, but he had worked closely with human engineers for 20 years. He understood their way of thinking better than most council members. If the humans had built something in this empty space, it would be extraordinary. Take us closer, he ordered, but stay ready to jump back to hyperspace if we detect any threats. The Kang fleet of 12 ships moved carefully through the void. There were no stars here, No planets, nothing but empty space stretching between distant galaxies. It was the perfect place to hide something enormous. "Captain," called the sensor operator, his voice filled with amazement. "You need to see this." The main viewing screen activated, and Juanil felt his breath catch in his throat. Ahead of them hung a structure so large it defied understanding. It was not a ship or a station. It was like a small galaxy made by intelligent minds. Spinning, rings of metal and crystal rotated slowly around a central core that blazed with contained starlight. Massive towers reached out into the darkness, each one larger than most space stations. Gardens of impossible beauty floated in transparent domes, while streams of pure energy flowed between different sections like rivers of light. "How big is it?" Juanil whispered. "Approximately 200,000 kilometers across," the science officer replied in a stunned voice. "It has the mass of a small solar system." Ships moved around the structure like tiny insects. They were clearly human in design, but larger and more advanced than anything humanity had ever shown to the Council. Their hulls gleamed with unknown materials, and they moved with grace that suggested incredible technological advancement. "We are being scanned," reported the communications officer. "Multiple sources, very thorough but not hostile." A familiar voice came through the communication system. "Council Fleet, this is Ambassador Dongsu. Permission to come aboard your flagship." Juanil felt relief wash over him. "Permission granted, Ambassador. We are very glad to hear your voice." 20 minutes later, Ambassador Dongsu materialized. On the bridge, in a transport beam more advanced than any Council technology. He looked older but strong, wearing clothes made from materials that seemed to shift and flow like liquid metal. "Captain Juanil," Dongsu said with a slight smile. "I remember you from the engineering conferences. You always asked good questions about human technology." "Ambassador, the Council sent us to find humanity," Juanil replied. "The galaxy is in crisis. We need your help." Dongsu's expression grew serious. "I know about the crises. We have been monitoring Council space, the medical plague, the failing infrastructure, the Void Hunter attacks. We expected these problems." "You expected them?" Juanil asked, confused. "We have been preparing for this situation for 50 years, Dongsu explained. "Every time the Council dismissed our solutions, we continued developing them privately. Every time our warnings were ignored, we prepared alternative plans." Dongsu gestured toward the massive structure visible through the viewing ports. "This is New Terra, not a replacement for Earth, but a backup for human civilization. We built it in case we ever needed to leave the galaxy." "But why did you leave?" Juanil asked desperately. "The galaxy needs humanity." An older voice spoke from behind them. Veltar stepped onto the bridge, looking tired but hopeful. "Because we stopped listening to them. We stopped valuing their contributions." Dongsu nodded sadly. "Veltar has been studying Council records for months. He understands what happened better than most." "I reviewed 300 years of meetings," Veltar explained to Captain Juanil. "In every case, humans proposed solutions to major problems. In every case, the Council delayed or ignored those solutions. Humans saved galactic civilization dozens of times without receiving credit or recognition." Dongsu led them to a conference room deep inside the human structure. The walls were made of some transparent material that showed the gardens and cities floating in space around them. Millions of humans lived and worked in this impossible place, their civilization more advanced than anything the galaxy had ever seen. Dr. Hyojin developed fusion technology that could power the entire galaxy, Dongsu continued. The Council wanted to study it for 18 months while worlds ran out of energy. Dr. Sunmi created medical treatments that could cure diseases, affecting billions of people, added another voice. Chief Engineer Kyung-soo entered the room, his hair now silver with age. The Council said her methods were too unconventional to approve. We kept developing these technologies anyway, Kyung-soo explained. We built New Terra using principles that the Council thought were impossible. Artificial gravity without massive generators, energy systems that use space itself as fuel, cities that exist in perfect harmony with nature. Hwanil looked around the conference room in amazement. The furniture seemed to grow from the floor like living wood, but it was clearly manufactured. The lights came from nowhere he could see, but they provided perfect illumination. Everything worked together in ways that his engineering mind could not understand. But the most important discovery came from Admiral Ji-hun, Dong-su said, his voice growing grave. Show him. Admiral Ji-hun activated a holographic display that showed the galaxy from above. Red dots marked areas where space itself seemed damaged, or wrong. We detected these anomalies 15 years ago, Admiral Ji-hun explained. Reality breaks in space-time that allow creatures from other dimensions to enter our universe. The Void Hunters are not from our galaxy. They come from a place where the laws of physics work differently. The Council's instruments cannot detect these breaks, Kyung-soo added. Human technology developed in ways that made us sensitive to dimensional disturbances. We have been tracking this threat for over a decade. That is why we left, Dong-su said quietly. Not just because the Council ignored us, but because we detected signs of an invasion that would destroy everything. We needed to prepare. Hwan-il felt cold fear creep up his spine. An invasion? The Void Hunter attacks are just the beginning? The Void Hunters are scouts, Admiral Ji-hun confirmed. The real invasion force is still coming, something called the Entropy Swarm. They do not destroy worlds. They make worlds stop existing entirely. How long do we have? Veltar asked in a whisper. According to our calculations, 6 months, Admiral Ji-hun replied. Maybe less. The room fell silent. Outside the transparent walls, human children played in floating gardens while their parents worked in laboratories and workshops. They had built paradise in the void between galaxies, but paradise would not save them from what was coming. The Council will never admit they were wrong, Veltar said sadly. They will demand that humanity return and fix everything without acknowledging their mistakes. Dong-su looked at his old friend with understanding. Then we will have to decide whether the galaxy is worth saving despite the Council's pride. 18 months after humanity's departure, the galaxy screamed in terror. The entropy swarm had arrived ahead of schedule, and worlds were simply vanishing from existence. Chairman Threx Dun stood in the Council's emergency bunker, watching the holographic display as entire star systems winked out of reality. Not destroyed, not conquered, but erased as if they had never existed at all. Kepler system is gone, reported Admiral Krendus, his voice hollow with despair. 12 billion people, all traces of their civilization, even our records of them, are becoming confused. The entropy swarm was unlike any enemy the galaxy had ever faced. They looked like shifting shadows in the shape of enormous creatures, but they moved through space without ships or technology. Where they passed, reality itself became unstable. Send the surrender message, Chairman Threx Dun ordered quietly. Veltar activated the emergency communication array and transmitted on all frequencies used by human ships. The message was simple and desperate. To humanity from the Galactic Council, we surrender unconditionally. Please help us. The reply came within hours. President Nari's voice was calm, but carried the weight of absolute authority. We will consider your request. Stand by. Deep in the floating cities of New Terra, humanity's leaders gathered in the Great Council chamber. President Nari sat at the center of a circular table, surrounded by the people who had guided their species through its exile. They want our help, she said simply. The question is whether we should give it. Dr. Hyajin, now over 300 years old thanks to human life extension technology, spoke first. The galaxy ignored us for centuries. They dismissed our warnings about this exact threat. Why should we risk our lives for people who never valued us? Admiral Tae-sung, his hair white but his mind still sharp, leaned forward. Because that is not who we are. We do not abandon people in need, even if they have abandoned us. The Council treated us like children, argued Dr. Sunmi. They acted as if our contributions were interesting curiosities rather than vital innovations. Let them face the consequences of their arrogance. Chief Engineer Kyung-soo pulled up technical displays showing the entropy swarm's capabilities. From a practical standpoint, we can defeat them. Our reality anchors can stabilize space-time. Our dimensional weapons can force them back to their own universe. But should we? Asked Dr. Myung-ho. If we save the galaxy now, will the Council learn anything? Or will they go back to ignoring us as soon as the crisis passes? The debate continued for hours. Some argued for mercy, others for justice. Some wanted to save innocent lives. Others believed the galaxy needed to learn hard lessons about respect and cooperation. Finally, the oldest voice in the chamber spoke. Dr. Hyajin stood slowly, her ancient eyes still bright with intelligence. I have lived through 300 years of human history, she said quietly. I have seen us dismissed, ignored, and undervalued countless times, but I have also seen what makes us different from other species. She walked to the great window that looked out at the gardens floating in space around them. We do not help others because they deserve it. We help others because they need it. That is what makes us human. That is what makes us worth saving. The room fell silent. Even those who had argued against intervention felt the truth of her words. President Nari called for a vote. The decision was not unanimous, but it was clear. Humanity would return to save the galaxy that had spurned them. Admiral Tae-sung took command of the human fleet that emerged from New Terra. The ships that followed him into battle were unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. They moved between dimensions like fish swimming through water. Their hulls were made of materials that existed in several realities at once. Captain Minho led the first wave of attack ships toward the entropy swarm. His vessel could phase in and out of normal space, allowing it to strike enemies that existed, partially in other dimensions. Reality anchors deploying, reported Dr. Yoon-ji from the command ship. Her devices created bubbles of stable space-time that prevented the entropy swarm from erasing anything within their range. The battle was unlike anything in galactic history. The entropy swarm attacked with weapons that tried to unmake their targets at the quantum level. Human ships responded with reality bombs that forced the creatures back into their own dimension. They are retreating from Sector 7, Captain, Minho reported. The reality anchors are working. They cannot exist in stabilized space-time. The war lasted 3 days. but it felt like 3 lifetimes. Human ships darted through battles that took place in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Dr. Yunji's reality anchors created safe zones where evacuated populations could shelter while the fighting raged around them. On the 3rd day, Admiral Taesung led the final assault against the Entropy Swarm's main force. His flagship, powered by fusion technology that Dr. Hae-jin had perfected decades ago, generated enough energy to stabilize space-time across entire star systems. "Dimensional barrier complete," reported his science officer. "The Entropy Swarm cannot return to this universe. We have sealed the breaks in reality. The galaxy was saved, but the cost had been enormous. 17 star systems had been completely erased from existence. Billions of lives were lost. The survivors looked upon their human rescuers with a mixture of gratitude and shame. In the rebuilt council chambers, Ambassador Dong-Su stood before the assembled representatives of 12 species. But this time, his chair was not the smallest at the table. This time, everyone listened when he spoke. "Humanity will return to galactic society," he announced. "But we return as equals, not as junior partners. The new council charter will recognize the contributions of all species and ensure that no voice is dismissed or ignored." Veltar, now serving as the Council's Secretary of Human Relations, presented the new charter. It had been written jointly by human legal scholars and representatives from every surviving species. The document enshrined principles of mutual respect, shared decision-making, and recognition of diverse contributions. "Never again will any species be taken for granted," Veltar declared. "Never again will innovation be dismissed because it comes from an unexpected source." Chairman Threx-Dun, humbled by the crisis and humanity's salvation, signed the charter first. One by one, every other representative added their agreement. Dr. Hae-jin, now serving as the galaxy's chief science officer, worked alongside Alien, colleagues who treated her words as wisdom rather than curiosity. Her fusion technology powered the reconstruction efforts. Her medical innovations helped heal the survivors. In the years that followed, galactic civilization reached heights it had never imagined. Human creativity combined with alien knowledge created wonders that benefited every species. The quiet competence that had once been ignored became the foundation for a new golden age. And in the monitoring stations that watched the boundaries between dimensions, humans and aliens worked together to ensure that never again would any threat catch the galaxy unprepared. The galaxy had learned a hard lesson about the price of arrogance and the value of humility. They had learned that true strength comes not from dominance, but from recognizing and nurturing the unique gifts that every member brings to the whole.